welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. We're really excited that you're here because we're going to be talking with Beth Larsen, one of our friends from JMT Consulting, about falling in love with Fintech. I love the word Fintech because it sounds really fun and edgy. Beth, I think this freaks people out, right?
It sure does. Hi, Julia. Great to be back. Yes, it can be a scary subject for many.
You know, financial technology, I feel, Beth, is changing as we are speaking here today on the Nonprofit Show. And by the end of this 30-minute episode, it'll have changed again. And so I'm really looking forward to kind of getting some high-level thoughts and approaches from you today so that this rapid change doesn't become so fearful and so fraught with tension. I think the more tense things get, the easier it is to disengage. And I think with financial technology, it's easier to say, oh, we'll do that later. And
Absolutely.
That's just not good. So, what's really good in our world of technology are our amazing partners. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, our friends at JMT Consulting, Fundraisers Friday, Your Part-Time Controller, Third Sector Company, and Clear Impact. These are the folks that join us day in and day out. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy, and I have this amazing group of co-hosts. But I'm flying solo today with Beth Larsen, Vice President, Client Accounting and Advisory Services at JMT Consulting. Okay, my friend, can you step back and explain to us what JMT Consulting does?
Sure. So, in a nutshell, JMT Consulting is a professional services firm. We provide consulting and technology implementation services exclusively for the nonprofit sector.
Wow.
So our consulting services range from implementation support all the way through your fully outsourced back office operation.
So if I was anything between like a CFO and a bookkeeper and I'm in a nonprofit environment and I'm like, we gotta like step up our game and move away from the stack of signed checks, right?
Right.
We can come to you and you can help us figure out a digital, I'm going to use the word digital, but a technologically based accounting system.
Yes. So that's a great example of just a myriad of ways that at different points in time, organizations need different things, whether it's staffing capacity or technology solutions. As we mentioned, the landscape is rapidly evolving around us, and we are here to walk alongside organizations in whatever way they need it at that moment in time.
Okay. I'm going to have you briefly talk about the origin story of your company because one of my all-time favorite episodes ever, and we've done nearly 1,300, was with your founder. And right as we came on in the green room, she said, she's based in Nashville, and she said the tornado alarms have started going off in other parts of the city, and I might have to jump off and go down into the basement. And I was like, what? I'm like, no, let's not even start. Go get safe. And she's like, no, I think we'll be okay. And I'll be damned. It was like the last second of the last minute of the show, the sirens went off and she's like, gotta go. She was very calm. I think that's part of her leadership. So talk about Jackie Tiso.
Yeah. So over 33 years ago, JMT was founded by Jackie. And I admire Jackie for so many reasons. And, as a professional woman and watching, in knowing her legacy story with JMT, Jackie started her career in the sector, in the nonprofit sector, and recognized an opportunity. And here we are 33 years later, a company 50 plus people strong that are, dedicated to continuing to strengthen the nonprofit sector. And she's she's held true to that mission and vision.
Well, she's a super cool woman, and we will, at the end of the show, talk about how you can actually meet her at a big event that's coming up. So let's get on into this. Again, we talked about this, and I hope we didn't lose any viewers because we launched with fear. It was like, fintech, financial tech. You advise us to kind of flip the script and imagine possibilities. What does that mean?
Well, it means addressing and acknowledging where that fear is coming from. A lot of times, there's a reason why there's fear. Those of us that have been through technology, software transitions can probably draw upon at least one or two experiences where things did not go well. And that's where we like to, highlight our niche in that we are not just technology implementers. We are supporters and service providers walking alongside you through that process. And we want to help you imagine how, imagine that you can have a solution in which data is flowing throughout your organization and not having to be manually and duplicatively entered across multiple systems. And even further, what if you could have a solution that compared your data from program or development alongside finance to give you some impact measures? And a lot, that's where our world is headed. Yeah. And we want to help the nonprofit sector get there.
I love that you brought that up, because to me, that is one of the biggest changes in the last 5 to 10 years in our sector. And that's funders and donors and stakeholders demanding more metrics. And so much of this is financial, but there are a lot of organizations that have only been structured to basically pay the bills and make payroll. Right.
Absolutely.
And so I just love that you brought that up, because I think that there's a lot of fear. And then you're looking at the financial departments and they're like, I'm just trying to keep my head above water. And now you want all these metrics, it's a time fraught with a little bit of tension.
It is. And it quite frankly, it can feel overwhelming if you can't envision what that landscape looks like and what the roadmap is ahead. It's really challenging to know how to get there, right? And so, we want to encourage folks to not only, part of that imagining the possibility is to engage a partner. Doesn't have to be, JMT or, but engage expertise, talk to people who have been through it, and do a comprehensive discovery of what it is that you want for your future state so that you know where you're headed.
So let's dig into that a little bit more, because you're advising us that we need to really assess our situation and where can we do better. And my sense of it is sometimes this is really hard to do because you only know what you know, right? So how do you imagine and how do you figure out how things can be better? Is that why you need a consultant to kind of lay that landscape, or where do you gain that knowledge, I guess, is another question.
I would say the answer to that is both, and that, while, you can certainly benefit from investing in outside expertise from the technical and solution, focused space, there's also an incredibly important characteristic internally in that you're making sure you're including cross-functional representatives from each of your departments, so that you aren't designing solutions in a vacuum and separate and segregated from what other folks across your organization need in order to make decisions, including your board and your chief executive, most importantly, probably.
So I'm going to ask you kind of a human-centric question, and that is, how do you do this without making the financial department feel like they're being attacked or that they're not doing a good job? Because it seems to me, even in the C-suite, Beth, in a candid private moment, I'm shocked at how many high-level folks will admit they're kind of afraid of their financial department. They're afraid to ask questions. They don't want to feel dumb. They feel like they should know the answers. And then they realize that the financial folks are kind of underwater. There's just so much going on. So how do we kind of, I don't want to say soften the blow, but make it more open?
Well, I think one of the first things to remember is that even the most savvy financial person can look at a statement of activities and not be able to define or translate for you what is behind those numbers operationally. That you go into your financial software design with the mindset of understanding what you want your information to tell you. How do you want to organize your data? Because at the end of the day, it comes down to how you put data in is how you're going to get data out. And you can build reports and whatnot, but you have to design your database, which is all your financials. And those numbers are just numbers on a paper, on a piece of paper at the end of the day. And what's behind them is your design and your architecture of your system in order to ensure that you're categorizing things in a way that's meaningful for you as an organization.
Yeah. This makes me think that we're not including our development teams enough. You mentioned that briefly at the start, but is it fair to say that that's where a lot of these data demands are being driven from? Because they've got to report back to funders?
Sure. Absolutely, 100%. That is more times than not one of the most significant pain points across functions in organizations is the reconciliation and translation of financial information across those two departments. Because when, for example, when a funder pledges to you or commits to you a dollar amount, the way that the finance team needs to recognize that in accordance with GAAP and FASB standards isn't always translated in the same way from the development team. And so they're naturally coming at this with two very different schools of thought and understanding. And so how those numbers get represented on paper, again, you can understand a statement of activities all day long, but if you don't understand nonprofit revenue recognition and how that translates into the financials each period, you're going to naturally have a disconnect. So 100%, one of the most important things I think that we do through walking alongside clients is help their teams better develop understanding across functions so that and alleviating bottlenecks and pain points between multiple departments when they're not always speaking the same language.
Right. And I think that development, a lot of times, in order to secure, and I'm going to use the word the sale, in order to secure that financial partnership and investment, they tend to make promises that they don't always know that they can be kept or how they're going to be managed. And then they're like, oh, okay, I'll pop by the finance department and throw that out, after it's all said and done. Yes. And then the poor finance people are like, what the heck? Or the worst thing, and I'd love to get your feedback on this before we move forward, is a lot of times that there's this push to get this rush of information because of a grant deadline or, some sort of proposal. And it comes Thursday afternoon, I need this for a Friday lunch. I mean, it's so hard on everybody. Do you see that?
Oh, absolutely. If I would say that's status quo, right? if it's not, I, before coming to JMT, spent 20 plus years in the nonprofit sector in various roles, 15 plus of which were in C-suite, level positions. And that is across all organizations I was in, that's the status quo. nonprofits are under-resourced, operationally and on all fronts. And so the more time, they're doing the best that they can with what they have, right? And so, it's ensuring we can help strengthen their infrastructure to be able to produce information and data in a way that's going to help them make better decisions.
Yeah, I love that. I think when you kind of frame it that way, it makes it a lot more holistic for the health of the organization and not so siloed. Like he said, she said, we would have gotten that contract if finance had helped. And then finance is like, development's making promises we can't keep. I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of, strife between
For sure.
those two groups. And so I'm thrilled that you kind of pulled this out. Let's talk about making changes and long-lasting love, which I think this is a truism. It involves a roadmap. What does that mean to you, Beth?
What it means is going back to the possibilities that we talked about early on. What did you envision? Keep those front and center, of course, so you understand what your final destination is. And then you need to go back to your strategic priorities, and always go back to your strategic priorities. I think that you need to ask yourself, how much more impact can you achieve if you're spending less time on manual duplicative tasks? Mm-hmm. And can you afford to continue on the path that you're on, or is your mission so important? I hope the answer is yes, that you need to make an investment in ensuring that you're optimizing as much as you possibly can and automating as much as you possibly can, in making that investment in your organization for the long term.
So when you're thinking about this roadmap and you're understanding that it's going to be a journey that maybe the rest of the organization doesn't understand, I have two questions for you that follow along that. How long does this take, and how do we bring everyone along? Because I think it's also hard to get people invested, trained, accepting of a new program, new process.
Absolutely. So again, that roadmap and that length of time, how long that's going to take. There are so many variables there. What I would say is the discovery, spending the time up front in that discovery phase with those various stakeholders from your various audiences. So that includes board, chief executive, each department within your organization. And then also talk to a few key donors and get their input. But take the time to understand what it is that your organization needs, not only right now, but what will it need 5 years from now? And, what is the investment you're willing to make to get there? And then you're charting, the length of time. I mean, you don't want it to drag on forever, but you don't want to rush something that, this important either. And so it takes what it takes. It's perhaps as you move through different phases, you might be in one phase like discovery a little bit longer than you anticipated, because you got through certain aspects of it and you realized, we didn't consider that this team is really struggling with these areas. And what if we could potentially build out an integration to incorporate our HR information to synchronize and integrate right into our financial system? So we might slow this down a little bit and take the time, or we might decide that that's a phase, a later phase after we go live and compartmentalize this project. But the planning and the intentionality is what will drive success for so many people.
I love when we're talking about time. I love that you put it into a phase, because I think that that's something that a lot of organizations can understand. And when you're trying to fall in love with your financial technology, you said something really interesting, and I want to drill down and get your comments on this. You almost sounded like you're looking at this on a department level. Like, does it make sense to say, okay, we're going to really focus in on development and see how all of this works, and then we're going to move on to HR and see how that works? I mean, is that the sort of thing that you would advocate when you're looking at a major shift?
100%. So we often work alongside organizations that are going through an implementation, and they may engage us early on for the discovery piece. So they might outsource the discovery and bring us in to do what we call a business process analysis. So we're looking across all of the functional areas of the organization, and we're talking to folks throughout those throughout those teams to understand where their pain points are. And most frequently what we hear is that folks are not getting access to real-time data, financially and otherwise, that they need in order to make good leadership decisions for their teams and to deploy, their resources in their teams. And the larger the organization, the more you can imagine, the more impactful and risk, the more risk there is with that. And so what ends up happening is you can't properly plan and forecast. So you're always in reactive mode, which is why this has become the status quo for so many organizations. And so if we can just reimagine an integrated cross-functional system in which you are taking inventory of all your data elements that you're needing to manage and asking yourself, are we putting employee data in more than one system? And if so, why are we doing that? And what is the cost manually to doing that? And with a pretty, insignificant investment of integration, you can alleviate and get back that time in a year. It's just, there's a lot of potential out there. And these are things that I didn't realize when I was, 20 plus years in the sector, because you don't spend your time thinking about what technology is capable of. You spend your time understanding what those individuals you're designed, and purposefully there to serve. You aren't studying and researching technology, and nor should you be. And that's why we're here, is to let you focus on your mission, and we'll help you achieve it through optimizing your back office.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I think you slide in two factors. One, changing technology, that's astonishing. But, even more important for me, Beth, and I'd love to get your comment on this. I just feel like funders and stakeholders, from the federal government down to family foundations, they're demanding more information. They're more data oriented themselves. And so that puts the pressure on nonprofits who've spent their lifetime creating good narratives, telling the story. We talk about this all the time. You got to tell the story. You got to share the story. And it's like, yeah, but you also have to have the metrics. The metrics can be in narrative form, but it seems to me problematic because we're not getting the actual metrics about what it is that we're doing.
Absolutely. And I would also, I like to challenge that thought process a little bit in terms of if we don't have the data to tell us how effective we are in delivering our mission, then that's an issue. We need to be, not all the metrics are around, our overhead rate. The metrics should be around, the investment we're making in our people and in our organization to impact the lives of those that we're, chartered to serve. And so we need data to be able to do that. And it's not easy to get there. I do not want to minimize or oversimplify it in any way, but it's important. And like you said, it's becoming increasingly important in some cases, a demand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, it's perilous on the side of the funders, because I think a lot of them don't even know what are the data questions or the data points they should be asking. It's that new. So they're like, we want measurement and we want data and we want, reporting. But I think that's an area where we're kind of in a tenuous time too. And I don't know if you think that's true. Maybe that's just my observation.
No, I think that we're living in a data dense world right now, and it has become the expectation that we can get whatever information we want very, very quickly. And how does that expectation then roll on over into the nonprofit sector, and what does that mean from an expectation standpoint? It's an interesting thought.
It is. I mean, it's a new dawn, but I think at the end of the day, my personal opinion is it's all about the relationship. And if you can demonstrate to your funders and stakeholders, contractors that you work with, this is where we're going. Is this the type of information you want? I think you need to, like you said so early on, you need to, chat with your teams internally to find out what it is they think they're going to need, what they need now. I mean, these are discussions that are hard, but ultimately could really help you. I want to, before I let you go, this has been a fascinating conversation, and thank you, Beth, for coming on and talking to us. Before we let you go, I really want you to kind of talk with us about Innovate 2025. I promise this is the time when I would say, how do you get to meet Jackie Tiso?
Yes.
and it will happen at the Innovate 2025. I was really fortunate to be at Innovate 2024. I will be at 2025 doing some work on the main stage. But talk to us about what this looks like and what should we expect.
So our Innovate conference is phenomenal. I know I probably sound biased, but I have had the opportunity to attend as a registrant before I was a team member at JMT. And I recall walking away from that conference feeling as if it was one of the most useful and informative sessions, hands-on, tactical, it's awesome. It's May 5th through 7th in Tennessee. We're going to be in downtown Nashville this year. So we're super excited about that, because who doesn't love Nashville? And yeah, it's an intimate group. So it's not one of these conferences where you're going to have 1,500 people. It's a smaller, intimate conference. But like I said, it's hands-on. You're going to want to bring your tools, bring your laptop, bring your iPad, because you will be hands-on learning, and you're going to want to go back to your hotel room at the end of the day and explore in your own system. And in some cases during sessions, you'll be able to do that as well. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And of course you get to meet just so many great people, and from across the United States and even the globe. I think we've got folks coming in internationally this year. And you get to meet your peers and just share stories and, lean on one another for support right now.
Yeah, I think it's really magical. I think it's a great way to build a cohort. I was at a table when you were in Boston last year. There was a gentleman representing a company from London. There was a gentleman that was from the Northeast who he was, I think, the CFO for a very large library system. There was somebody that was from, I think, a teachers union from the West Coast. And then there was somebody from a hospital system, or they ran clinics or, medical clinics, and they were all nonprofits. And it was riveting to hear different parts of the world, how they had some of the same pain points. They could share, oh, well, this has worked for us. This is a problem. What do you suggest? That was like the whole conference. It was this type of energy. A lot of fun, a lot of really interesting people doing different things, but having the same issues, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because that really sums up, and it sums up what I get to do every day. And in short is, across this, diverse group of entities across the globe, like you said, the challenges, the pain points, the bottlenecks, They're very, very similar regardless of what specific vertical you're in the sector.
Well, you have been consistent with us. We have just loved having you on. Beth Larsen, Vice President, Client Accounting and Advisory Services at our friends over at JMT. You can learn more about the conference. You can learn more about JMT at jmtconsulting.com. And there you can learn about so many different things and thought leadership where JMT is going. But there's a special page just dedicated, or I should say section of the website, just dedicated to the conference with some great videos, and you can kind of see physically what it looks like. And so we will see you there. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with you even more. Beth, thank you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Hey, everybody, we have these amazing connections every day with our presenting sponsors. And they include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, JMT Consulting, Fundraisers Friday, Your Part-Time Controller, Third Sector Company, and Clear Impact. These are the folks making a difference across the globe in the nonprofit sector, and we are delighted that they make a difference with us. You know, we end each and every episode with this mantra, and it goes like this: to stay well so you can do well. Thanks, everyone.